All right, hello. I'm
Hello, I'm
Jules.
Magpie, and we are.
Bunniichii.
Woo!
Yay!
Welcome, all my parasocial parasites. I
Oh, I
appreciate.
like that.
Thank you. I came up with
I
it.
like that a
I
lot.
came up with it in a shower while I was thinking about the hate messages that I got this past week.
Don't tell the parasocial parasites that.
I want them to feast off my corpse or yours.
I don't know. That sounds a little too much like foreshadowing to me.
You don't know what's gonna happen.
That's true.
The world's my
I don't know
oyster. I
anything.
know you don't. That's why I'm here to to talk about
To
the
guide me?
to talk about the Oron High School musical again.
Nope. Mm-mm. No, ma'am.
Yes. Oh,
Maggie, what are we
Julie,
talking about
Julie,
today?
wait. Quick
What?
sidetrack.
No.
Yes. Yesterday, I found out that Japan in the year 2015 did a Vampire Night musical. And the whole thing is on YouTube.
Hmm.
And the person who uploaded it said that there was English subtitles. There were no English subtitles.
So you're gonna learn Japanese to watch a musical?
Just to watch the 2.5 hour long Vampire Night the musical.
That sounds right.
Yes. Apparently there's some really cool vampire battles, and I'm here for it.
Fair enough.
Anyways, for all you parasocials, we decided at the end of last week to have this week's topic be about professionalism. And
Woo.
this week, are we professional, Julie?
Oh, not at all. I have no idea what's happening.
We did not come prepared this week, but I'm going to be starting my chops of leading conversations. A very difficult
believe
topic.
in you.
Thank you. Julie, what would you say? Professionalism as a term in regards to the cosplay and social media space. Define it for us.
It's unheard of.
Thanks.
Professionalism to me, when I think about it in terms of cosplay, I think about it inherently when it deals with individuals who are trading money.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are giving someone money for a commission, at that point they need to be professional. If you are giving someone money for photos, at that point they need to be professional. I'm not speaking about people who show up to cons and gallivant around and be silly with their friends, right? They don't have to be professional, but the moment that you start being something more than who you are, the moment you start becoming a brand, is the moment you need to be professional. And it's the same kind of professionalism that I would expect in any other, environment or place of business. The moment you're invited to guest, the moment you're invited to judge, the moment you're exchanging currency is the moment you need to be professional.
I absolutely wholeheartedly agree.
Thank you.
A big part of that is even if it's not a monetary transaction, if it's a transaction that holds some sort of monetary value or a value for you as an individual, I would also say. Since I know for some of the smaller conventions that I've guested at, I don't always get like cash, but I will get reimbursed for travel and lodging, or they'll comp that, Yes.
And I think the cosplay community in general, and I think this is why we wanted to talk about it, we're pretty fucking horrible at being professionals because inherently this is a hobby. This is hobbyist level stuff, unless you are, like we name dropped a few episodes ago,
Jessica
Kamui
Negri.
Cosplay, Jessica Negri, Yaya
Han.
Han,
Um,
Mall Cosplays. Like, unless you are one of them,
yeah.
typically you're a hobbyist. But I think, and I have seen a big issue where people will do these exchanges of finances, and at that point you are no longer a hobbyist, and then the moment they need to hide behind the hobbyist label because they are not acting appropriately, they do because they're just a hobbyist, guys. Why are you being so harsh on them?
Cosplay's
Like,
a hobby. It's not a
it's
job. Don't
just
take
a
it
hobby.
personal. I'm so
Like,
sorry that I
no,
said something.
the moment contracts are signed, the moment money is exchanged or something of monetary value is exchanged, it is no longer a hobby for the duration of that period.
Correct.
Like, the person I am when I am guesting at a con is not the person you will meet in the streets. I don't swear when I'm guesting at a con. I am very polite to everyone who comes to speak to me.
Yep. No NPR.
And I will I will speak like a professional to those who require that level of professionalism. Because, I have a 9 to 5 where I have to speak to people on a very professional level, and I expect to be treated that way and to treat others that way once we're entering the realm of this is no longer just a game. And I think that's a very normal thing to do. I don't think it makes you like a sellout or whatever, or you're not being authentic. You're just being a goddamn professional.
Yeah. I would agree, especially in the way that not being a sellout, because when you are being sold as a brand, and that's as soon as you become a professional, there's expectations for the way that you present yourself. If you've never been in that type of situation before, I would actually equate it to being that of like a CEO of a company. If you're the face of a company, i.e. a brand, you have to act with a certain way where you're being taken seriously and you are being not a fake variant, but something that anyone would be okay with interacting with in the real world. And that is a good presentation of who you are on your best days.
Hell, even when you and I are doing the Bunniichii panel, like I straight up told you last time, I'm like, we're representing Bunniichii now, get your game face on. Like,
and then I laughed, and then I got my
game
game face on.
At that point, to some degree, we have to be professionals. People expect a level of professionalism.
Yeah, I would agree absolutely. When we do the Bunniichii panel, there's a big difference between, like, not as big a difference, but a solid difference between the way we are outside of those panels and outside of any type of panel setting. It's different from when we're guests, because guests, we're mainly focusing on craftsmanship and teaching and sharing of knowledge. Bunniichii becomes this variety idol duo act where we recreate idol anime so people can LARP to their heart's content while also being entertaining.
Right.
A lot of improv, which you can do improv and entertain, but while still being professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I've seen, because I haven't seen a lot of issues. Okay, let me rephrase that. I haven't seen a lot of issues in regards to cosplayers not being professionals.
I like
recently.
your clarification.
I don't know if you have. I'm sure you have. You're on the internet more than I am.
Ouch. That hurt me a bit more than I should.
Touch grass.
No.
I do it every day.
I don't want to.
But I specifically have had some pretty serious issues with photographers and professionalism with this. And it goes back to the moment I am paying you for something. When you are doing something in a business sense, you have a lot of communication, right? So
right.
I'm a software engineer for my day job. It's a lot of going back and forth. I will code something or write something and I will hand it off to the person who requested it. They'll say, no, that's not quite right. Can you do this instead? And in my head, I think, well, that's not what you asked for. But outside, I say, yes, of course I can do that because you're the client and my job is to make you happy. So I go and I redo it, and I will redo it as many times as I need to because this is a paying client and that's what you do.
Yeah.
I have noticed a propensity for cosplay photographers to not do that. They hand you photos that they pick, that they edit how they want to, with very little influence from you. And they say, this is it. And if you say, I don't really like this, they say, too bad, I'm a hobbyist. And I'm like, I gave you $250. You are no longer a hobbyist.
Shout out to Momo, who has never done that in the entirety we've known her.
Woo. Shout out to Momo, who has redone photo shoots for us.
Oh, yeah. And Momo's the best. That's why we keep coming back to her, I'd say.
But the difference there is that Momo was a literal professional photographer before she became a professional cosplay photographer.
She worked at a photo studio. She did portraits. She, even without being in that setting, she knows what that professionalism is. That's where her degree is in. She wants to be a photographer. She acts as a professional because that's her business.
And I think inherently, when you have the cosplayer to photographer pipeline where you hand a handful of cosplayers a cell phone and then they start charging money for pictures, you lack that. Because people don't realize the moment currency is exchanged, it's different. It's I have made costumes for friends for fun because I wanted them to do something with me.
Thanks,
Or I have made
Julie.
my own costumes where I cut corners because it is my costume and I can do what the hell I want. I have also been paid for costumes, and the moment money is handed to me, I take things very, very seriously. It is an extremely different process of me making a commission costume versus me making a costume for myself. I did this keyleth from, oh, what is it called? Critical Role.
Yeah.
I did keyleth for someone, and it was a whole process, and I sent her pictures, and when she didn't like something, she told me what she wanted instead, and I seam ripped everything, and I did it again, and I took no corners, there were no edges that were cut, everything was sharp and hand felled on the inside with proper clasps and buttons and fitting that I wouldn't even do for myself because someone paid me a lot of money for it. Like, it is respecting someone's time at that point, because I understand that a lot of people aren't in a position where they can throw money around like it's nothing, especially with the way that the economy has been in the last like 2, 3, 4, 25 years.
Yeah. No, horrible.
I understand that these things are a luxury, and so when someone is entrusting me to make their dream costume, and they are giving me, admittedly not as much as I should be charging because I'm really bad about that, but giving me a lot of money in retrospect. Like, it deserves to be respected.
Yeah.
Their time needs to be respected. Their money needs to be respected. And I think I've seen people do cosplay commissions that, I'll be frank, they shouldn't be doing them.
Yeah.
You're not ready. You're not there yet. You aren't respecting these people's time and money. And I've seen photographers, I've worked with photographers who have charged amounts, and I'm not going to say that they're wrong because I think it is up to the market to determine the value of something. And I have gotten pictures back and I've said, this is terrible. No one is ever going to see this. That was a waste of my money and a waste of my time.
What do you mean?
And now
Madonna
I
and
know to never
Child
work with
isn't
them again.
iconic.
Holy mother. And I realize that this has been a long rant, but it's indicative of a larger problem within this culture where people want to be taken seriously, but the moment you speak to them like a goddamn adult, now they're being ooh woo baby. And why are you expecting so much from them? I'm expecting so much from you because I signed a fucking contract, you know?
Yeah. I wonder if, now this is just me speculating, because
Oh boy.
I've noticed, it's not like I do it a lot, but every once in a while I'll speculate. Because when things got a bit more serious on the cosplay front is when we had the rise of social media influencers. We had that beginning trend. As the cosplay scene has continued to grow and become more mainstream, it's become more accessible to minors and a younger crowd. And since a lot of conventions and organizations these days base worth off of followers, who is more up and with the trends than the kids? So because they're quite literally contracting minors and young adults who don't have a grasp of what professionalism is, those expectations have been lowered, and they continue to be lowered since no one's being held accountable. That was my speculation.
Well, I mean, the person I'm speaking on who should not be doing cosplay commissions, they're a minor.
Yeah.
And
I
they
think
aren't
I was
there yet.
I think I'm
We're
thinking
thinking
about
the same
we're thinking
person.
about the same person. Okay.
They aren't there yet, and
Yeah.
it's okay to not be there yet. But you have to understand the level you are at.
I also think.
And
Oh, you go first.
just because you can doesn't mean you should. There we go.
I like it. There's also this side bit where we're seeing the commodification of hobbies, and with cosplay specifically. I bet this is going to be us initially talking about professionalism and just going into commodification of our hobbies. But
leave your comments below if you think that's what we're gonna do.
You know. No, only Summer. Only Summer, maybe Daniela are gonna comment.
Perfect. They can leave their comments.
Make it as queer as possible, Daniela. You know the assignment. Summer, get freaky.
Anyway, you were saying.
Anyways, there's this commodification of hobbies that's going on, and this need that is being set up way too early as a concept for young adults to create a side hustle and whatever hobby or something that they are at least starting to learn and get a decent handle of, find a way to sell it and make money from it. And based off of what I've observed is that, especially since a majority of cosplay now is you're buying it, unless you're a person who likes to create from scratch using textiles, the idea from a consumer of being able to buy a custom cosplay is very appealing. Because then it's tailored to fit you, and you can say, oh, I didn't buy it from such and such a place. Someone made it for me. You are immediately putting out this concept and vision that you are not rich or loaded, but you have expendable income already set. And, the only way to be good at this hobby is if you're rich. So you're already setting yourself apart from the crowd, therefore giving you that much leverage in the future for potentially getting gigs and contracted work to be guests or do things at conventions.
I always forget that people who get invited to things aren't inherently crafters.
Yeah, I forgot about that until I started becoming a guest at places, and I was one of the few that actively made cosplays. Not saying that the other guests didn't. It's just more of you could see that since their full-time job was cosplay, they focused on a lot versus quantity over quality, because that's what the internet hive mind requires. Because there was there was one cosplayer that I got on really well with when I was a guest at Anime Sekai, and I was talking to her about things, and we were talking about how the accessibility to cosplay and start creating has gotten very high. It's a very high starting point where you have to have the funds to be able to start learning and then take classes if you're not able to learn yourself. Which for me, as someone who's self-taught, I agreed to the extent because I had sewing YouTube videos. I was lucky enough that the library I had access to at the time had a lot of educational based sewing resources. And I had at least my brain just automatically thinks in the way of shapes, and I do a lot of trial and error. But for her, she started around the same time as I did, first cosplaying, so she also had to learn the creative process. But as she was able to transition into having that be her full-time job, she realized that no one cared about the quality of her makes. No one cared about the creative process or what she was putting into it. All they really cared was seeing her hop on the next trend and just the way she looked, which to me is pretty, I don't know. I personally see it as insulting to just pass off someone's creative abilities and say, no, we don't care about what you're making. It's how you look that should matter. I think I also had a very similar conversation at CowCon this past year with Skyline. Anyways, a lot of people that are guests, I have found to keep that job, or at least a part-time creative fund coming in, they have to go away. They feel pressured to go away from the creativeness and the ability to create and work on either costumes or wigs or something just to fit in with the next fashion trend.
Well, right, because things are moving too fast for any reasonable human being to be able to keep up with it, unless you're being contracted out by some big company who wants you to make a costume for them, like Kamui Cosplay
And
is.
mall cosplay, yeah.
Yeah, like they can do
Kamui,
these things and take the time because they're given a lot of money from, Activision Blizzard or whoever's hiring them for it.
I think Naughty Dog has also, Rockstar Games has done stuff too.
Or like I know Larian paid their official cosplayers when they were first releasing Baldur's Gate 3.
Mm-hmm. Man, how do we get into that? How do I get into that?
Well, first of all, you stop referring to Will as a pirate.
Will is a pirate, god damn it.
You have played 5 minutes of this game.
I met my pirate boy.
Maggie, what would you say your experiences with professionalism are like in this community?
I've had varying experiences.
And hell, we can even talk about not just cosplayers and photographers, but people who run cons.
See, that's what I was going to start with, because we've had...
Let's go.
And you know what? I've already been canceled in Texas. Who the fuck cares, I'm gonna... Wait, do you think I can maybe get legal action put against me if I just say the actual conventions?
Uh-huh.
Dang it. There was a convention in Arlington that I went to. And the convention organizers, super unorganized. There was no communication between the head of the convention, the staff, and the volunteers. The whole thing was a shit show. And the contracts were fine enough, like nothing too off from what's typically happening from a cosplay guest / cosplay judge standpoint. But what got me was that when I asked them, hey, what are the times, when are we going to do prejudging and all that, they were like, you gotta do, what do you mean prejudging? Me, what? It's a cosplay competition. Are we not going to prejudge so that then we can look over people's builds and let them go over things? Meanwhile, them, well, we're really not making it so that people have to make things. They can just go on the stage even if they bought it.
That's something they probably should have told you sooner.
The thing was, they didn't, the head of the cosplay competition person, like the coordinator, he didn't even know that we weren't going to get that until 30 minutes beforehand. And what was it? Like, that whole convention in Arlington was all over the place. Probably the worst way to kick off me being a guest at conventions. But whoo, that was a learning curve. Learning experience to expect the least amount possible. So that then when you get an expectation of this is professional-ish, you're like, wow, everyone here is so great.
You know who was incredibly professional that
Northwest
I
Idol
respect and adore
Fest.
to this day? Northwest Idol Fest. Abby on the moon.
Abby, we love you.
Because we ran into an issue where you and I had something to do Sunday because we expected the con to be over.
Right.
And our contract said we only had to be here for a certain amount of time.
We had to go swap.
And when we spoke to Abby about it, she was a completely reasonable human being.
Yeah.
She listened to us. Mm-hmm. She spoke to the people she needed to speak to. She, within a very reasonable amount of time, came back and told us, that we were allowed to go because things were running over and it wasn't our fault and there is no ill will. But because we already had tickets to something else, we were free to go.
Yep.
And we left on great terms.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like that is something that very easily could have been blown out of proportion. Mm-hmm. I could have gotten my lawyer voice on, and I didn't have to because everyone was a professional. Mm-hmm. We were all adults, and all of us came at it from a position of assuming best intent.
Yeah. I'd even say during like the cosplay competition prejudging period.
Yes.
There, like, Abby was super professional, even though a lot of stuff
Abby
was
and MS
changed.
Paint Palette.
Abby and
Things were
MS Paint
changing on the
Palette, let's
fly.
go. We love you guys.
Things were absolutely changing on the fly, and it
And so they
wasn't
worked with
ideal,
it.
but
They worked
they
with
were
it.
great.
And the other thing that I really appreciated was that they were apologetic as well. Even though it was out of their hands, they were acknowledging that it wasn't a great situation. They took accountability
Right.
for it. And even though it was out of their hands, the fact that they took accountability to me meant everything. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, we're freaking chilling, you know? I finally get to meet Subaru. Heck yeah. Vibing with Julie, Mermaid Melody.
I would also say that Subaru as a human being was also incredibly professional that entire weekend. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Subaru Kamui is
actually, hell,
fantastic.
I'll go further.
Ah,
Every single cosplay guest that I have had to judge cosplay contests with have been wonderful.
I agree. Every single person.
I have not
Yeah.
had a single issue with a fellow cosplayer where I have also been guesting and judging. They have been great, they have been professional and kind, and I have nothing bad to say about them.
I'm almost tempted to err on the side of that. I found a majority of the cosplay judges are older. They're our age range or a bit older. So they have that experience of expectations to be professional. While cosplay guests, I'm going to put it in air quotes. Editing, Maggie, you're going to do something. I'm not sure what yet. But the cosplay guests aren't necessarily putting on this professional front because they might be seen as a crowd draw, as an influencer, or something similar. So there's these two different sects that we have now, where it's the judges, cosplay judges, who the expectation is you are older, you are wiser, you are telling us what to do, what not to do.
You're put into a position of authority.
Yeah, while cosplay guests aren't being given that same amount of high expectations. Because as soon as you sign that contract with the convention, you are also the face of that convention, at least for that year, for the duration of your contract and anything going forward. But I have not seen a lot of professionalism with most of these guests, and I found that a majority of them are younger.
I don't talk to guests who aren't also judging. I'm sorry, I'm that person.
I see, when I don't have Jules, I get very, or like my crew, I become like a baby without a safety blanket, and I decide, you know what? You are all my friends now. Please don't leave me alone. I am so scared. Also, I think I just like talking a lot.
Understood.
I also just like to talk a lot. So when I don't
That's
have
why
the
we're
crew,
doing this.
yeah, when I don't have the crew to listen to me talk about Vampire Night, I find victims.
Fair.
Yep.
No, the worst that I have seen is specifically with photographers and that one con that shall not be named. That was highly unprofessional in a bunch of legally questionable ways.
Wait.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know the one. I don't like that I thought too hard about that.
Come on, Mags.
Hey, dude. There's been two conventions specifically where there's a photographer situation, and then we're worried about some things on very, very specific different legal ways and safety concerns. All right.
That's fair. The other thing, though, that I'll admit is something where I am the problem is I have a very hard time because I have reached out to photographers when I haven't liked what I've been given back, and because of the responses that I have received, which were very much, I'm a hobbyist, or they just don't ever respond back to me and they leave my color grading blue when my costume was purple.
You are now in Twilight.
I have the issue where I am now not shy, but I am hesitant to reach out if I have any issues, and I just say screw it, and I consider that money to be lost, and I just mentally blacklist that person from my little head because I am so accustomed to that lack of professionalism and that lack of communication that I just assume that photographers won't listen.
Yeah.
Um, like the only photographer I now give active like conversations and feedback to is Momo.
See, I think another issue there, though, is that majority of cosplayers, both younger and just in general, at least from what I've observed, and then also putting forward my personal experiences, is that we inherently don't like to cause that conflict, because I think the cosplay space still primarily consists of individuals who are still trying to find their voice and gain that confidence to speak up.
I mean, I would also argue that no one wants to speak up because this is such a small community in the grand scheme of things that rocking the boat at all will everyone will know and it'll get around, and it's a huge fucking problem that this community has.
Yeah. You
So
right.
no one can speak openly and honestly about things because everyone's afraid of the backlash. I'm like, guys, grow some nuts and say what you mean.
Yeah, say it with your chest. Say it with your chest.
But this bad behavior of these group dynamics and from these conventions is part of why this community has so many secrets,
Yeah.
and it has toxic secrets, and it's why we can't have open and honest conversations, because the moment you say something negative, everyone loses their shit. And and then no one can ever, we're all having these conversations in
Yeah.
private.
Just Bunniichii says.
I know you are.
Bunniichii Corner says, we say it with our chest, and if you don't like it, fuck you.
I have lived my entire life with the premise of I don't say things that in private that I would not say to someone's face.
Yeah.
And granted, I'll say a lot to someone's face. So maybe
It's
that's not
very
the
impressive.
best.
Honestly, it's very impressive. If you ever see it, very cool. You will develop a girl crush on Jules.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I think people need to get brave. I think we need to stop having such disgusting dynamics with one another that we can't have open and honest conversations, because I know for a fact that like there have been people accused of sexually assaulting people, but
Yeah.
we don't name names, and so you're supposed to just kind of be able to like figure it out through a whisper network and like just automatically know to avoid this person. Or
that's not
when I
safe.
was guesting at a con, I had someone message me. They're like, "Do you really want to guest at this con? I know someone there is anti-Semitic." And I'm like, "Well, who's the
They're like,
anti-Semite?"
we're
And they're
not
like,
going to
"I'm
tell
not
you.
gonna tell you the name." And I'm like, "Fucking tell me so I can curb stomp a bitch."
Yeah.
Unless we start having these conversations out in the open, things aren't gonna change, and they're not gonna get better.
The community as a whole, and I still understand that it's a niche community, and if you have job ventures in here, you have to be careful with what you say because you don't know who has connections to who. You also have to understand and hold true to your own personal morals and ethics, and also just being a human, watching out for other humans, you know? Again, back in the reggae days, I was sexually assaulted by one of the band members, come on to by quite a few individuals. I called him out on it because, you know what, I'm not going to have that. What happens? You get kicked from a band and you get blacklisted.
Yeah.
Sue me. Yeah, it was sad that I wasn't able to perform live, but you count your losses, know what's important to you, and part of not being a sellout is sticking true to those morals. It's not just inherently being part of a corporation.
Yeah.
Yeah, which if you don't know what a definition of a sellout is, now you know. Good job.
Good job.
Yay.
No, I think this community is toxic from the very core of it, because people are afraid to speak about what they even think. Like, you should not be getting hate messages because you appropriately called out a group of people who needed to be called out. But because no one's talking about these things, of course that's what's going to happen, because we have collectively given these groups power by being quiet.
No, yeah, I absolutely agree. And even the fact that with the last week's episode of Bunniichii Corner, when we were in our little burrows drinking our Bunniichii, me going on a little mini rant about very specific groups, but I was not naming. If you knew who they were, you knew because you interacted with them to some extent, or they outed themselves based off of, taking things personal when they're being held accountable. So where does that leave us? Just this constant cycle of people not speaking up for themselves and speaking their truths. And then we get this constantly. It's a never ending cycle. And I think another thing, at least from like a behavior standpoint, I would like to see a graphic of how many people that are prominent in this community were either bullied as when they're younger at some point in their lives, or there was a developmental point where they were not reinforced to speak up for themselves, to speak out, or got that punishment for speaking out, where now into their adulthood or young adolescence phases, they're not having that motivation to do so, especially in a community such as this one. I don't know. I don't go inside people's brains. I don't go inside their meat suit. I'm just in mine.
What do you think? What is the minimum level of professionalism you would expect in working with a convention, a photographer, someone doing a commission, just anything along those lines? Like, what standard do you think we should set as the bare minimum?
Bare minimum? Firstly, have an actual contract that outlines everything from the get-go. As soon as you have that, like, either interest in working with an individual, or you have confirmed that, yes, I want to go forward with this relationship, this business relationship that we're going to have a contract ready, have all the bases covered and everything laid out. I would also like to see some flex, like have that understanding beforehand on what everyone's expectations are, have open communication at all times. Don't make the other party feel like there's going to be kickback if they voice concerns or need like accommodations or anything along those lines. If you are someone like a photographer or someone who does commissions, be open about what part of the process you're at all times. If you are someone who's asking for a commission, be open about your price point and don't take it personal if the person's like, hey, I know my time and my money, I know my worth, I could do this for this amount, but the thing that you're looking for, it's going to cost this. Learn to walk away with grace, and if something isn't working out, voice those concerns and start to problem solve. When you're problem solving, if that doesn't align with, like, if you're a guest, if the convention is trying to problem solve and this is now outside of the contract range, be understanding with what the guest or individual has and what they're dealing with outside of this business relationship. And if you have said specific like times, acknowledge that that's been in the contract. And so chalk up that little bit that, you know what, because of faults on our end or venue, whatever, we're still abiding by these contracts. Once again, Northwest Idol Fest, Abby, MS Paint Palette.
Abby and MS Paint Palette.
Whew.
Like, even just on their own, S tier.
Also, Lulu. Lulu and Co.
Oh,
I love that.
Lulu's great.
I still need to talk about that wrestling bit. But, yeah, no. Quite literally, the best experience that I've had as a guest was with Northwest Idol Fest. And I
would agree.
If more conventions were like that, I would be open to doing guesting and judging again in the future. Personally, there's been so many experiences at this point where I'm pretty much done from a judge and guest standpoint. Performance-wise, I mean, I'm not allowed to perform in Texas anymore, but I'll hey, yo, Northwest Idol Fest, I'll do like more free promo. I'll work for you. Let me go there again. Warp Tour's back. So Magpie can go to Northwest Idol Fest, bring more emo and punk. Hey, anyways.
One thing, this is partially connected.
This is our podcast. We can talk about what we want. Whoo!
I fell down a rabbit hole a few weeks ago about the...
Outside the borough?
A different rabbit hole about the furry community and fursuit makers. And they have it even worse because
Oh?
apparently a few years ago it was incredibly common to just be ghosted for like 3+ years
Ah!
after giving people money for fursuits.
Oh. Oh no. That's not good.
So you know what?
Ah.
At least we don't do that as often.
You know what?
The call out culture in the cosplay community is strong enough that if you didn't do a costume that you were paid multiple hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for, I think your house would just be set on fire.
I do know that that's very common, like in the furry community. It's also common in a very, very, very niche sect of the cosplay community, the Power Ranger cosplayers.
Really?
Yeah, especially for the people who want to do like as screen accurate as possible and with high quality materials. There's about 4, maybe 5 people, and those are the 5 people that you go to get commissioned. And they'll do like all the custom head fittings for the helmets. Everything's like made of leather, just very solid made. And I've seen quite a few of these up close, and even I'm like, yeah, that's good. But like these are builds and commission pieces that are up like anywhere between $2,000 to $5,000.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of money. And if a commissioner just vanishes off the face of the earth for 1.5 to 2 years and hasn't given you any updates on where your build is, apparently that's fine because they're one of the only 5 that will do it, and you've already given them their money. Hey, look, here. The thing is, I love Super Sentai, all right? Don't get me wrong. Very specifically, the pirate one. There's a theme here. Pirates. But if you are paying this money, and if you are the one who's getting paid this money for high quality work, give the people their product. They paid money. Please respect a consumer's money and time and precious hopes and dreams to some respect, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it makes me sad that this community is the way that it is. I really, really love this hobby.
Yeah.
This hobby means a lot to me for a lot of different reasons. And I want to see it be better. I want to see it do better, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think the main issue, though, is that at this point, the only way people will actively change is if others actively hold these expectations. And just as a whole, it seems that this community does not want to be held accountable for anything that they do.
Yeah. I would agree.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts on professionalism in this community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a time. Oh, hey, Julie.
Well,
On a separate note, did you ever see that video that I sent you?
which one?
Oh, there was like this really weird video that I just found. I sent it to you. I don't know if you saw it or not.
Oh, it was kind of weird, right?
Yeah. I think I sent it to you like at 1 a.m. the other night.
Yeah, I had just gotten off of a work call. And I remember, I don't know. It was just really I thought it was a dream, honestly.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, I think I have a voicemail that just came in on my phone. That's weird.
Oh, what?
I
What is
didn't
it?
even hear it ring. Here, one second.
Hey.
Let me go listen to it. Hey, Maggie.
Ah.
I don't know how to tell you this.
Huh.
I think I got 7 days.
Shit. Well, I think, don't take this the wrong way, but I think I'm gonna start looking for a replacement.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. All right, well,
Alright, well.
wish me luck.
Nah, not really. No.
I'll bequeath you my sewing machines, in the will.
You know what? I'm glad we had this talk. Since you do have 7 days, I do have to be quite frank with you.
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I was sending you.
Oh. Huh.
Yeah. You know me. I kind of saw this coming. Someone sent that to me after the previous episode. So get wrecked, man. Fuck you.
Oh no.
Fuck you, dude.
Well, shit.